This is an FOU Studios podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to GXP, the show where we get to level up with GXP. As always, I'm your host, Peter the Geek. In the room today, we have hashtag Kill Josh.
That would be me. Kill me with kindness.
We also have the amazing Lace.
Hi, hello.
All right, so we have a very, very special guest today. He's one of my longest friends. He's been writing for the Mission House's Historic Site and Archive for years. He's done writing for the Milwaukee Zoological Society, and he's finishing up his new play, Neath the Hills of Bastogne. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Zach Woods.
All right, Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
I like it. I wish everyone applauded for me when I was talking to them on the phone. Great.
Me too.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Zach.
Well, yeah, like you said, Peter, we have been friends for many moons.
Many moons.
Approximately
20
several.
25 years, probably.
Fuck,
at this point.
yeah. We knew each other
Yeah.
as infants, apparently.
Now, I don't remember this. I cannot corroborate that claim with any hard evidence,
No,
but
me either.
apparently it's true. So we grew up together. We went to high school, did theater in high school together, and then both went to school at University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, where we
Also
majored,
met Josh.
Hey-o.
and Josh Gergen. That's right. What is it? Kill Josh? Is that what
Hashtag-
you're calling him now?
Hashtag Kill Josh.
Kill Josh.
Poor Josh. Classic.
That's what I've been saying.
So we were all in the Stevens Point BFA acting program.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I have spent some time living in Honolulu, Hawaii, and have now, for the past several years, been living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I am currently working as a professional actor, director, and playwright.
Yeah, your work career has been so fascinating since you dropped away from college. I mean, as Lacey gasped,
I'm so jealous.
moving to Hawaii is not like not something most people get to say they've done in their
Yeah.
lives.
It's true.
Also,
It's
most
true.
people don't do that to pursue their career as an actor. Like, usually people go to New York or LA or sometimes Chicago. He was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to Hawaii.
I know it was a fucking awful idea.
Really? Was it that awful? I mean, come on.
You know, it's literally a tropical paradise,
Right.
but it's not a great place to live. It's not my favorite place that I've ever lived. It is a tropical paradise, but I lived in downtown Honolulu, right on the end of Waikiki, so it has all the problems that a city, that New York City has. It's big, it stinks, it's hot, it's full of people, you can't get anywhere. You think New York traffic is bad? Try driving to the North Shore on Oahu at rush hour. Jesus Christ.
Why are you dissuading me? Why? Why are you doing this?
It's still so funny. It's like, oh yeah, I lived in a tropical paradise. It fucking
And it was
sucked.
horrible.
I know, he said, it's a tropical paradise. Like, that was a disclaimer
Yeah.
before the real opinion came out.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's like when you say, I love them to death, but it's suddenly the I love them to death doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, it really is a great place, and everyone should visit there. But my mistake was I'm going to go there. First of all, I completely misjudged my abilities when I graduated from high school or from college. I was like, I'm going to go do film, which was not at all what I should ever have said that I was going to do, because I am not a film actor, and there's almost no theater scene whatsoever in Honolulu. It's very, 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 very small. And there's a huge film scene. I just got there and got into it and was like, oh, fuck, I hate film. What am I going to do?
All right. Well, I mean, that happens. It's time-wise, I just want to make sure we keep clipping along because it is just about time to
Geek Out!
All right, Zach, what are we geeking out about today?
Well, I'd like to talk about, I guess, writing as far as it goes in the horror genre.
Ooh, I like it. So, specifically with horror, what are some of your inspirations with writing in horror and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, one of my all-time favorite authors is H.P. Lovecraft, who yes, he is a
Yummy.
delicious
Delicious
Yummy,
Cthulhu.
yummy.
Yes, I'm very familiar with his works, and people will assume that if I
right. So I love Lovecraft, and I love a lot of Lovecraftian pieces that have developed since then. My all-time favorite horror piece is the brilliant jewel Silent Hill 2.
Silent Hill, man.
Such a good game.
You don't know it. You should if you have any interest in horror.
No, I know it. It scares the crap out of me.
It is terrifying, but it's brilliant.
It's a brilliant psychological trip as a part of what gets you so much is that it's not it's not jump horror. It's all about the person, and that's why it's so scary as you progress through the game.
And like even as a person who never actually owned a PlayStation 2 or got to play it, that's still a game that gets brought up constantly in these conversations of like horror classics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's legendary. I mean, and it should be because it was groundbreaking in so many ways. In its writing, in its art design, in its sound design. It's just a home run in every aspect except for the gameplay. The gameplay sucks ass. but
I guess didn't that kind of? I mean, it is a game, so like maybe that did it add to it in any way? Because like it was kind of clunky. So like when you wanted to do something, it wasn't just like immediately accessible to you, or do you?
You know, I have read that theory posed many times, and I kind of feel like Team Silent, the design team for it, took that argument and was like, yeah, that's what we did. But you know, at the time, I love to talk about the survival horror genre, which is so different from most genres of video games, and I would characterize that fixed camera angles are really what makes a survival horror game. Item inventory management, a really notable lack of items like health items and ammunition and weapons, so that the emphasis is not on the combat; it's on the knowing when to fight and when to run away. Yeah. And that is what makes good horror, I think, is putting you in a situation that you're not prepared to deal with.
Yeah.
So why would you say fixed camera angle specifically? Like, I'm honestly curious why that is something that came up, like the first thing you said.
Yeah. Well, so fixed camera angles, it's an incredible opportunity to create atmosphere and to set up a scare. In like horror movie design and horror game design, they literally refer to scares as gags, almost like in a comedy routine. Yeah. And like a joke, there is a setup and a punchline. And the punchline of a horror gag is the actual scare. Mm-hmm. And, a perfectly executed gag, in Silent Hill, for example, there's this bathroom in a prison that you go into, and you open the door and you walk in and there's nothing in the room, and you walk up to this stall that's closed, and usually when you click on a locked door, it'll just say the lock is broken, and it plays the same sound effect. This gives you a different thing. You hear the sound of you knocking on the door, and it says there's nobody in there. And then you turn around, and the camera follows you, which is bizarre. And once you get to the exit door, the camera has moved away from the stall that you just knocked on. You hear this blood-curdling scream come out of it. So this perfect setup. This camera follows you, which it doesn't normally do. You knock on this door, it gives you a different response than you're used to, and then as you're moving away from it, you have the punchline.
Okay. Wow, it's the fact that you that's something I never would have thought of, horror and comedy having the same structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm still kind of reeling from that right now because that's brilliant. I didn't even. Yeah.
I'm tempted to call it the difference between ah and ha.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's all. I mean, yeah. It's all about it's the same reason that comedy and drama is all about timing. It's
right.
It's It's basically just the content of the joke being scary or funny.
Exactly. Wow. And a fixed camera angle, can do really great things for you if the camera is, above your character's head. And, there is a large, dark doorway ahead of you. Mm-hmm. The designers have made it impossible for you to see what you're about to walk into.
Right. You can't look away, and you also
can't look away.
Mm-hmm. It controls that aspect of it. And like it being set up like a joke, it's the same way in if you're going to one of those haunted houses in the theme park when they're training the actors, there's always the setup, there's a distraction, and there's the scare. It's a well-orchestrated event. So
Absolutely.
Man.
I just think it's so interesting. Josh, did you have something to say?
No, I was going to say, how much does this change if you're writing and crafting these situations for the stage as opposed to the screen?
I think that's an excellent question, and that is something that I'm kind of grappling with. I've never actually sat down and written a horror piece before. I am gearing up to I really have a Lovecraft-based piece that I want to create, and I've just never seen a horror show on stage before.
Right? They almost never build a whole show around it. It can be a scene, it can be a moment where a character dies, something like that. But I also don't think I've seen.
The only one I've ever heard of was Women in Black, right? Wasn't that a stage production before
in London?
a movie?
Yeah.
And it's apparently, people have said it's like the scariest thing they've ever seen, but I've never personally seen it. I just saw the movie.
I mean, most of them I thought were just like dramas that had like scary moments in them. That's how
yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think there's such a market for a horror stage show because theater is such a fully immersive experience. That you can put your audience in the room and you have them there. You can create whatever experience you want to create. You can
lock the doors.
Fully lock the doors. Yeah. But you can fully orchestrate that story, whatever it may be. So at this point, I'm kind of going back and looking at some of the strong horror writing I have experienced and loved in the past, and trying to see how that might translate into a stage play.
That's interesting. That's really cool. Well, I mean, speaking of writing and shows you're doing, Neath the Hills of Bastogne, it's just because I know you and we've talked about it. It's about the Battle of the Bulge, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So can just talk to us a little bit about it. I'm interested to hear how you'd like to pitch it, how something about the process, because we're already talking about writing. So let's go into it a little bit.
Yeah, I've been working on it. It has nothing to do with horror.
Sorry, left turn.
I mean, I guess the horror of war. Let's say that.
I mean, yeah, sure.
There's our segue. Yeah, I've been working on it for a couple years. I'm terrible at pitching it. That is something that I need to work on. So what's about is in my history writings, a concept that's really fascinating to me is historical perspectivism.
Okay.
Which, when you explain it, seems really oversimplified. Which it's basically just imagine yourself in someone else's shoes. Is that history is written by the victor. Mm-hmm. We usually get here in America, we get a very Eurocentric interpretation of any given historical event.
Right.
But yeah, I know. I can't believe that.
Wow, what a surprise.
And perspectivism tries to look at it from all different angles.
Okay.
So the Battle of the Bulge, this play that I've been working on, is specifically about the the defense of a small town in Belgium called Bastogne. That was a crossroads town, and one American division held it against several German divisions, several German armies,
Right.
which were much better equipped for over a week.
Wow.
And so the basis of the play is that it tries to tell that story, which we've only ever heard from the American perspective,
Yeah.
from the German perspective as well as the Belgian perspective.
Wow.
Okay.
That sounds really interesting because I mean this is kind of tangent, not really, but like when you look at stuff like Star Wars, one of the Clone Wars episodes actually centers on the Separatists, and it's you go to the Separatist Council and you hear them talking about the Republic in a complete, like, it's one of the more interesting like social episodes that's ever come out of Star Wars, because the Separatist leaders are like, no, the Republic like they're all 100%, like, they're not bad guys, they're good people that are just, they're on the opposite side of war for different reasons than the Republic is on that side of the war.
Right. And that was absolutely the case with Germany in World War II, is that obviously you had the leadership were just terribly deranged people.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it. But you have,
lightly.
putting it extremely lightly, but you had millions and millions of people living in that country day by day and joining the military to support their families, that weren't necessarily, working in concentration camps and doing things like that. There were plenty of young 18-year-old kids who worked on a farm all their life who ended up in the Luftwaffe,
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's just so fascinating that, like, for writing any sort of play, like, on top of it, the Battle of the Bulge being like such it's a great centerpiece of like the late half of the war as well. It's I love the premise of the show. Like, in general, everything seems to converge on a very interesting point, and I'm excited to see it when you finally premiere it.
Yeah, me too.
So I was going to say, this is all obviously based on real events. Are you digging in, finding real people that were there to base this around as well? Or are you kind of inventing the story to illustrate the kind of different perspectives that you're going for?
So I'm inventing the story, and I've invented the characters, but a lot of the people and a lot of the experiences that people have are based on kind of composites of real people and real experiences that real people had.
Okay.
There's for example, one of the characters is a Belgian nurse, and there were two nurses working in aid stations in Bastogne during the siege, and one of them basically just cared for the soldiers by feeding them and changing their bandages and asking them about their families. And the other one, who happened to be of African descent from the Congo, a truly amazing woman, was the one that was like doing the surgery, helping with the surgery, and going out onto the battlefield and helping battlefield surgeons drag wounded soldiers to the medevacs under fire.
Yes.
Go girl.
Go girl.
Yeah. So this character is kind of a composite of those two women.
Very cool.
I love her already.
I was going to say that. That's a very cool character. From what we've talked about before, is it still that one of them is like if I remember, at least one point when you were talking about it, you said there was a German and then there's an American too, and they're both injured and they don't understand each other, correct? Or am I mistaking an earlier draft?
It's sort of, but that is a major theme in the play, is that so much of what separates us is so absurd. Language barrier is one thing, that this American soldier and this German soldier find themselves in similar situations. They're both going through the same hell.
Yeah.
and yet they hate each other because they were born in a different place and they speak a different language, but they're, the same age. They've seen the same things. They're not that different. And if somebody could just help them understand one another, maybe they could, find peace.
Yeah.
And so that kind of becomes the nurse's role, is that she's multilingual and kind of facilitates an understanding between these two guys.
Wow. It's strangely topical show.
Yeah, very relevant. Very relevant.
Yeah,
very, very, very much so.
It is. I had a line in there at one point that was "Make Germany Great Again."
Oh no!
I don't think it's made the final cut.
No. So actually, this is a really good segue. Actually, kind of bringing us back to horror, but staying in this kind of what we were just talking about with
because our world is terrifying.
I mean, yeah, but that too, truly terrifying. But the idea of a shared experience. I think that's a part of what makes so many horror things so interesting. Is like some of us have the same fears, some of us have the same weird people that have anxiety. Sometimes they see images and people like that's it, and that those kind of ideas are what trigger certain emotions and feelings within us. So I guess that was just kind of a weird statement being like, oh, this can relate to horror, I guess, in some way. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. And it's people, because humanity has evolved, for thousands of years along the same lines, we do have the same kind of basic fears. So
yeah.
And I think that is what's fun about horror, is that we're all scared of loud noises and we're all scared of pointy teeth.
Pointy teeth specifically.
Very
to us. But I mean, some of the best experiences that I have had in my life with my friends are, getting together in a dark room and booting up a horror game for the first time. And,
yes.
Amnesia. Peter and I played a lot of Amnesia in college.
Yes. With a drink in hand and a completely dark room.
And I mean, it was so crazy. I've never seen anything like that. People would leave the room crying.
It was
scary,
intense.
But it's not that scary. It's just a video game.
Yeah.
But being scared together is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I like more horror movies. I haven't played a lot of horror games before, but I love that experience of going to see something that is fucking terrifying and sitting in a theater full of people that are also scared, but then you become this amoeba community of people that are together in that experience. I love watching horror with other people. Not just because I'm scared to watch it by myself. I watched The Ring at 3 a.m. in high school by myself. Let's just, those are my points there, my props. But I love watching horror with other people. It's so much fun.
There's a really funny. Go ahead.
No, sorry. If you could bottle that and create some sort of interactive theater piece.
There is.
That plays on that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's interactive, immersive, horror theater. There's an entertainment group called something 1031 Entertainment, 1031 Productions.
I was on a different level, but yeah.
Oh well,
I don't know what you're talking about.
they do a live experience where you buy a ticket for it, and it's you camp outside, and they have people come in and scare the crap out of you. So it's like a haunted house, but you can't get away, and it's fully immersive and fully it's like an adventure you go on to survive. It's survival kind of thing.
I feel like there's a way to do almost like an escape the room horror kind of thing.
Yeah, they have those.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a market, there would be a big market for that.
Yeah.
And I guess what I feel like is the difficulty is that I think I love haunted houses, and I think entertainment experiences like that are great, but I'd like to create something that is inherently a theater piece,
Yeah.
where the story shines through and it's about the characters.
Okay.
You as a community are just experiencing it somehow together, and that maybe it can be interactive, but it doesn't fall into that kind of haunted house.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Zach, write it so I can see it, okay?
Yeah, right,
Do it. Write it. I want you to.
Yeah, yep. It's that easy. I'm gonna sit down
Yeah,
right
just
when
do it.
right when I finish this.
Do
I'm
it
just gonna print
tonight.
out
Do
and
it
I'll send
tonight.
to
You can whip it together. I have faith in you.
All right, so, Zach, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know they say they're just not the kind of person who likes horror. They don't do horror movies. They're not excited when Halloween comes around. Like, do you have something you say to people like them? Or what are they missing?
My question. I have a list of horror movies that I always pull out. Say, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And usually they say no, 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 no. Well, then you don't know, because so often you don't see horror with a good story and good characters.
Yeah.
You just see this schlock.
You see Saw 5 and
What's
Saw
on your
5.
What's on your list? I want to know what your picks are.
Alien, the
Okay.
first one.
Yes.
masterpiece.
The Thing.
Yes.
The John Carpenter one?
The
Yes.
John Carpenter's Thing is, I think, one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
So good.
Let's see, what would be The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one.
Oh, yes.
It's a very good one.
And I actually haven't seen that one. That was the first one on the list I haven't
haven't seen The
I've never
Shining?
seen The Shining.
Oh, it's good.
Really?
Yeah, you
Oh,
want to
check
really
it
yell
out.
at me. I've never seen The Godfather.
I haven't either. It's okay.
I mean, that is a lot of hours to sit there and watch
Yeah.
Marlon Brando with cotton in his mouth.
It's-
So I don't really blame you for that.
It's
But
also
it is good.
it's an energy commitment as well. Like, it's a thing. It's a whole thing.
It's the
But if you look at those three movies, you know, they are very plot driven, and they are very character driven. You know, all of the scares aren't just there for the sake of scaring you. You know, the movie creates a very specific, very deliberate atmosphere and tension that is all rooted in the story.
Yeah. I mean, I know Alien is. Alien is fantastic, but I meant to say The Thing is one of the first ones that struck me as like where I was scared for every single character at any given
Yeah.
moment. Like it does such a good job of making you second guess everybody and everything, and I think that's one of the reasons it's good is because you're not. It's not like there's a jump scare about like it's whenever I go into horror movies, especially the not good ones. So often like it doesn't affect me because like you're kind of like, all right, so it's gonna be scary. Let's do this. But the point you made is so good that when the story and the plot are driving this horror element, that is what makes it change from being like, oh, it's a scare slasher horror flick to this
Right.
is a movie.
And I want to say the thing about all three of those movies is that the actual scary component of it, be it the monster or the alien or whatever it is, they were unknown factors the entire time. Like
Right.
you barely see the alien for the last couple frames of the movie. At any moment, you have no idea who the alien is in The Thing. And it's really about that kind of hiding the ball and not showing your hand.
Well, and The Shining, there's so much of it that's like, what is this reality? Is this actually happening? Like, there's so much of it's like, what the fuck is going on? Because you
Yeah.
don't know at any given moment what is reality or what is happening or what is. Yeah. It's
I think if you look back, if we go back to this kind of comedian joke analogy,
yeah.
that a really, 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 really great comedian is so good at just holding you there with them the
Yeah.
whole time, and they're so engaging that you don't see the setup. That the setup
Yeah.
is so subtly introduced that the punchline takes you completely by surprise, and because of that, it's all the funnier.
Yeah. That's a
And
good point.
really, really good horror gags. You know, like when you go see Lights Out or some crap like that. You know, you can sit there and you can be like, oh, that was the setup. Oh, there's going to be a jump scare in 3, 2, 1. Aha!
Oh my gosh, she closed the mirror and there was someone behind her.
Yeah.
Right, but nothing. I mean, there's that. You guys have seen The Thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of you.
It's the only
There's
one
that-
I haven't seen out of them.
Ooh.
You got to go see it.
I'm doing a lot of while you're talking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, The Thing, of course.
Do go
That-
on.
Brilliant scene where he's testing the blood.
Yes.
That was in my mind just now. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, you can't see this because the whole scene is so masterfully tense.
Yeah.
It's all set up that when the punchline comes, when he's you know who you think the alien is. And you're waiting for it to be him, and then he says, "Oh, I'm going to test you next." And like halfway through his line, he's testing the blood sample he's got, and it freaks out. You know, that's brilliant horror. Right there.
Oh yeah. Because like you're expecting the jump, but it also comes yes at a moment you're not expecting it. Like I mean, Josh and I both do a lot of comedy. I mean, with Batsu and everything. And you're so right. The more the setup for like, and I mean, Quick Wit Challenge is just trying to come up with one line jokes as quickly as you can. But anytime you know you have a good punchline and you can just deliver it simply before you give the punchline, the audience loves it that much more.
Right.
Wow. It's I love it. This is stuff that I again never really would have thought of. So actually, I do want to. I mean, with circling all the way back to Silent Hill 2, with everything we've been talking about, the bathroom scare when we talked about the fixed camera angle, where there this is something you and I have talked about a lot, but I want to actually bring it up. Because its Pyramid Head is the main like focal like juggernaut of fear in this game.
He's the big bad, if you will.
Yeah, the big bad. In your opinion, why is that figure and that scare such an effective tool in the storytelling of Silent Hill 2?
Well, I think that something that the American sensibility has ruined Pyramid Head.
Yes.
That he has become this like kind of boogeyman in the series.
Yeah.
And they, shoehorned him into later games, and they shoehorned him into the movie.
Yeah.
And in Silent Hill 2, you play as James Sunderland, who is just this kind of everyman protagonist. And the premise is his wife has died 3 years ago from an unnamed disease. And Silent Hill was their special place. And he gets this letter 3 years after her death that says, "Come to Silent Hill. I'm waiting for you." And he is just drawn there for some reason, despite the fact that he knows she's dead. And Pyramid Head kind of functions as a foil to him. He's kind of like his personal, the devil on his shoulder.
Yeah.
He's there punishing him for the sins of his past. And he's such an effective character in it because he's so personally connected to the protagonist.
Yeah.
It's not just like a big scary looking monster that has a jump scare now and then. You feel a connection to him, and that connection is what's scary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he also just comes out at very specific moments, and like you're saying, to punish for sins. And it's been a while since I've played it, but isn't like the most of the times you see him like just after you find out details like that? Again, it's been a while. I might be extrapolating.
Sort of.
Okay.
Mostly they're big. They save him for big set piece moments in the story.
Yeah.
He's really instrumental in moving the action forward, which is, good writing.
I mean, yeah, definitely.
He's a strong character, but he's also a plot device.
I mean, yeah, and brilliant design too. Like talking about like weird horror things. Like that entire game has interesting like just character things. Like the mannequins, it's all legs, and there's all kinds of symbolism behind that. There's
every monster in the game is somehow sexual.
Yeah, which it's very interesting and a very eerie presence when you really look at it. One of the other things I appreciate about what Silent Hill 2 does is it's not one of those games that like a really good parallel is Stranger Things. There's the upside down, and then you're not in the upside down. Then you're in the upside down, then you're not. But this one, you're just in the upside down the entire time.
Yeah.
And so that, in my opinion, that's a part of what makes it such an effective storytelling piece. Because unlike the upside down, it's not like you can really tell that you're in this other dimension, except for the monsters and everything fucked up that's happening.
Right.
It's just you go to Silent Hill and suddenly you're just in Silent Hill and it's weird.
And it has this really interesting purgatory vibe.
Yeah.
And every character that you meet in Silent Hill 2, this is true. I feel like the other games really start to take this idea off the rails. But in Silent Hill 2, it feels like everyone is there for a specific reason because of something that's happened to them or something that they've done, and that their perception of the town is totally different. That you're seeing things through James's eyes, and because he's thinking about his wife, all the monsters are kind of sexual because they are symbolic of his sexual frustration. But there's a little girl in the town who doesn't see monsters. And there is a woman who was abused by her family members, sexually abused by her family members. And there's one monster that you encounter that she sees as her father.
I didn't know
And
that,
none of this is like laid out for you either. It's just kind of passing dialogue that you can miss entirely if you're not paying attention.
Well, I mean, that's effective plot writing right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have to clockwise say that we've been talking for over half an hour now.
Oh, no!
I mean, it always happens where it's you never expect it to be a half an hour after a conversation like this. But we've now hit plus 10x speed. It's just 10 minutes where we can ask specific questions that we might have thought of that we weren't able to come back around to because of the way the conversation was going. I know I have one right off the bat. Do you?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's a horror game that you introduced me to not that long ago. I always forget the name. Is it Shades of Fear? Layers of Fear.
Oh, Layers of Fear, yeah.
Layers of Fear. And when we were talking about the horror being comedy setup gag kind of stuff, that game it's so effectively, and it does. A moment I'm never going to forget. I guess, really quick premise of the game, I'm going to do a terrible job. You're a painter, correct?
Yep.
And it's this really interesting psychedelic journey for you. And at any given point, at least in the game, I never knew if this was like a reality or a dream or a nightmare or what it was. But as you're going through this house, it's just masterfully artful for how the horror elements just bleed around you. And there's a moment where you're walking down a hallway, and there's this weird ass painting that's just kind of like, what the fuck? Okay. And you go into the room and you turn and there's no doors. So you turn to go out, and then suddenly the wall that had come from is gone. Like there's no door for you to go to. So like, okay, you turn back around and that weird painting is now the size of the entire wall. And like the game just does all kinds of just weird stuff like that that unnerves you. There's one where you go into a kitchen and you try to exit and you can't, and then you turn around and a painting that has all kinds of fruit the fruit literally starts bleeding out of the painting and hitting the counter. Knives start moving. Like it masterfully like puts you on edge by doing twists and turns like that.
There is no way that design team didn't just like sit around, drop a bunch of acid, and then start working.
I mean,
it's nuts.
You're so right that there's no way they didn't come up with that when they were doing something. But yeah, I guess that was less of a question and more of like I just wanted to bring up that game.
Right. I was about to make fun of you for not ending in a question mark. Like that was.
I guess I could have just opinions.
Okay.
I love that game. I totally agree. That's one of my top 5 horror games.
All right.
Of all time.
Okay, so I've got a question, and it's not related to horror specifically, and it might seem kind of dry, but I'm curious about, like, you are a playwright, you're a writer. How much of your process is, like, planned? Do you need to, like, make yourself get in front of a laptop every single day, or do you wait till, like, inspiration kind of hits?
A lot of it is deadline-based.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
So, I kind of... I do kind of plan ahead that I get my contract and this is when my deadline is, and I just go through my calendar based on. I don't believe a lot of people will tell you you got to write 1,000 words every day or whatever.
I've definitely
and to me, yeah, and to me that seems really constricting because there's so much pressure on you. And if you don't meet your daily goal, then you kind of beat yourself up. You feel like you failed, right? So I think it's effective to just look at your schedule through your deadline. This is when I have time. This is when I don't have time. And I think it's important to forgive yourself for not meeting your goals. I was going to write 6 pages today, and I wrote 6 words. Oh, well. I'm gonna go play video games and eat some ice cream instead. So.
Well, I mean, you did a lot of writing for the mission houses in Hawaii.
Yeah, I just submitted a draft on Friday, actually.
Wow, I mean, that's a yearly gig for you, right?
It is. Yeah, it's an annual gig. I'm now in the sixth or seventh year of it.
Wow. So yeah, I mean I mean, off of Josh, that's a very deadline based thing, I guess, so that you know when it has to be done. So
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm just going to sneak in here. I'm going back to the horror video games because I love horror. Okay, so as someone that has just started, like, I literally started playing Breath of the Wild, Zelda, like a couple months ago, and now it's completely consumed my life. It is the only video game that current video game. Like, I used to play, Mario, obviously, back in the day and things like that, Donkey Kong or whatever. But now I'm getting more into video games, and what I'm asking is, as someone that's never really, played a horror video game before, but loves horror, I love movies, I love all that stuff, what would you recommend as, the horror video game starter pack?
that's a good question. I like that.
Well, I think that Silent Hill 2 is just the ultimate.
You think it's the
perfect
best
in so many ways. I mean, it's so good. The only drawback is that, to starting with it, is it's so fucking scary, A. And that, B, if you start there, you will be disappointed by everything else you play after that.
Yeah.
But what's good about it is that so many of the really good horror games that are coming out now are so high pressure that if you're not an experienced gamer and you are prone to fear in stressful situations, you can't play the game because you're just paralyzed.
You're just so stressed out.
I had something like that happen when I was playing Alien Isolation.
Yeah, you rage quit. You fear quit.
Yeah, basically. I was just like, I can't get past this one section. I've been trying. The alien keeps showing up, and I can see it on my little motion detector. And you've got a wrench as your defense.
A wrench.
Yeah.
So I guess
I've seen so many people play these scary games, and the second they hear Amnesia in particular, you hear that monster scream, somebody immediately presses pause. I'm done.
Okay, but I love a challenge. So what's Amnesia?
Amnesia. It's if you have a PC, Steam is a great way to get a lot of these
cool.
a lot of these horror games.
It's gonna happen.
What's great? Amnesia, I don't know that I could recommend a worse starter game. But what's great about Silent Hill is that it's so scary, but it's easy. The combat is really awkward, but you don't have to fight if you don't want to. You can just run around and literally run around the monster. They're all pretty slow. It's got a really great function on it where it lets you choose your combat difficulty, but then also your riddle difficulty. There's a lot of puzzles, so you can do easiest combat mode and super hard riddle mode, and that gives you a lot of flexibility.
I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool that those are separate options.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess even we're talking very specifically about Silent Hill 2 and then Alien Isolation, but in terms of the IP or the branding, I guess Silent Hill as a genre, even though they're not all great, that I guess Silent Hill as the IP would be a recommendation.
All right, it's happening.
I know Resident Evil has gone through a lot of weird iterations. The older ones were really good survival horror. The newer ones became action games, but
the new one is terrific.
Oh, I haven't played it.
The new one's really good, really back to the roots, but also, I mean, it's first person, so that totally shakes things up.
Yeah, and then I had another one and I just lost it. I'll have to think on it for a second.
Anything created by Frictional Games is terrific. They make Amnesia. They have a really, really wonderful game called Soma. Yeah. It's about robots. It's futuristic. It's underwater. It's kind of like BioShock.
Okay.
BioShock is really terrific too.
Right. It's not quite in the horror, but there's some real suspense elements in the first one, especially.
I mean,
yeah.
It's also just such an what was the artist's name? With the rabbit.
Sander Cohen.
Sander Cohen, that character. Yeah. It's not straight up horror, but you're uncomfortable.
Yeah,
You're
it's pretty
uncomfortable.
goddamn scary.
Yeah.
Kind of off topic, but did you guys see the Black Mirror episode playtest about horror video games?
I have not.
Oh, yeah, I was in and out. I saw bits and pieces of it.
You gotta watch it. It's great. Anyway,
I've heard Black Mirror is amazing. I haven't caught
I
up.
started
yet.
watching.
So good.
My girlfriend was watching Black Mirror, and I like walked in when that guy was about to fuck the pig,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, "What are you watching?" Oh my god!
What's this?
I
What's
never
in
want to
here?
watch this show again.
I've seen a couple episodes. I saw the one with the cell phones and everybody filming that one girl who's like wakes up with amnesia. I don't want to give like any of the turns away. That's why
it's so unsettling. The whole show is so like,
It really is. So I also always hate being the better or bad news, but we're at 45 minutes now, which means we have to bring the show to a close.
All right.
So
Yeah.
this was a lot of fun though. Like Zach, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, I feel like I leveled up today. We had a lot of great conversation. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
but,
Solid
Yes.
geek time.
Yeah.
it's time for everybody to sign off, I guess. As always, I'm Peter the Geek.
I'm #KillJosh.
And I'm the Amazing Lace.
Zach, as always, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, and we'll see you guys at the next level. And we're clear.
Woo!
All right.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our show. If you liked Geek XP, help us out by becoming a contributor on our Patreon. We have bonus content, raffles, and more at patreon.com/yourgeekxp. Geek XP is recorded live at Face Off Unlimited headquarters in Astoria, Queens, and was edited by Peter Hargarden. Executive producers are Joe Tex, Jay Painter, and Eric Robinson. FOU Studios is a property of Face Off Unlimited LLC. I'm Peter Hargarden, the senior producer of podcasts here, and on behalf of everyone who worked on the show, we'd like to thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Subscribe to catch all of our other podcasts here on the FOU Studios Podcast Network. To connect with the geeks, follow us at YourGeekXP on Facebook and Twitter. To learn more about FOU, connect with us via social media at FOU Studios and visit us at FOUstudios.com.